Do you know how deaf-mute people curse? That day, my father stood up, gestured wildly, and then turned his head to look at me, asking me to translate.
My death.
I am Ruby, and I was so embarrassed at this moment. My father danced and became more and more excited, angrily accusing the people of the fishery committee of exploiting us fishermen, and even said on the spot that he would no longer sell fish to them in a unified manner in the future, and incited other fishermen to stand up and resist in front of the whole audience. At that moment, he looked like a fighter, but I know that it was our family that suffered. Although there are 4 people in our family, there are 3 deaf-mute people. How do you let them sell fish? Of course, all the communication work naturally fell on my head. I had to go to the market to sell fish, negotiate prices with vendors, and quarrel with me. Even when my parents went to see a doctor for some very private problems, I had to translate beside them. The gestures were so explicit and specific that at that moment, I really wanted to dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it. And this is almost my daily life. I am just an ordinary high school student, but I have to bear all the responsibilities of an adult. Every morning at 3 o'clock, when others were still sleeping, I would get up to fish. Then I would rush to class, without even time to change into clean clothes. Because of the smell of the sea, my classmates would avoid me. I got used to extra lessons, standing in the corner, and poor grades. But what I couldn't stand the most was those people pretending to know sign language and imitating ugly gestures to laugh at me. They couldn't see the embarrassment in my heart. They just thought it was fun, and I could only pretend not to hear. Even when facing the boy Miles I liked, I could only look at him from a distance and never dared to get close. Until that day, I saw him signing up for the vocal ensemble, singing. This is the only thing I really like. For some reason, I also walked over and wrote down my name. My heart was beating so fast and my hands were shaking. But when it was my turn to audition, I ran away because of my timidity. The next day, the teacher found me. He knew my situation and decided to let me sing first. He said to use the puppy breathing method to open my throat. I could feel someone laughing behind me. My ears were burning and I wanted to run away immediately, but the teacher didn't let me go. He asked the whole class to do it together. The teacher's method worked and made me feel less inferior. At first, my throat was a little tight, but I gradually got into the state.
I've been really trying, babe.
I saw that the teacher and classmates' eyes lit up all of a sudden. This was also the first time I sang in front of others. Later, the teacher became more and more optimistic about my musical talent. He arranged Miles and me as a duet partner and asked us to prepare a program together. Later, my relationship with my classmates in the choir became better and better. The teacher said that I could apply for Berklee, where there is a scholarship. This made me make Berklee my current life goal. The teacher even said that he could give me free tutoring on weekends, but my mother was a little disdainful of this.
Why is it always about you? You should get out in the world too.
Although I was unhappy about this, I could understand my mother. How could she understand it if she had never heard music? The next day I took Miles home to rehearse. We sang face to face, but it was always awkward. When our eyes met, it was like being electrocuted, so we decided to face each other with our backs. Strangely, although we didn't see each other, our hearts were closer, but I thought the spark of romance was about to ignite, but unexpectedly, it exploded next door first. There were some very, very private sounds in the room. It turned out that my parents didn't know I was home. I opened their door and desperately turned on and off the lights, trying to prevent this disaster. That moment, I really wanted to travel back to a minute ago and save my life that was just good. That night, our family and Miles sat in the living room. My dad suddenly started to educate me seriously. He explained to me the physiological knowledge that I didn't want to hear at all, and when Miles tried to find an excuse to leave, my dad actually pushed him back. Then he actually started to lecture, saying that soldiers must wear helmets on the battlefield and reminded us to take defense measures. Oh my God, I was so embarrassed that I could dig my toes through the floor. Fortunately, Miles doesn't understand sign language at all. I quickly found an excuse to send him away. I thought all the misunderstandings were finally over, but I didn't expect that the next day the news would spread all over the school. I knew. Miles told it. He said he only told one person, but now the whole world knows it. Who can I blame? I can only blame myself for having a bad vision. I knew that this relationship was completely over. I ignored him. I began to turn all my attention to singing. It was the only thing that made me feel free. But before I could get closer to my dream, something happened at home again. Because of the monopoly of the Fish Industry Committee, those of us who work hard to fish can't make much money at all. My father and brother finally exploded. They decided to leave the committee and sell fish themselves. It sounds heroic, but it's really hard to do it. How can 3 deaf-mute people in the family sell fish? How to communicate? Of course, I have to take on the responsibility again. From going out to sea in the early morning, to transporting and storing, to market sales, every link is indispensable to me. Plus, I had to go to school and prepare for singing practice. I felt like the sky was falling. It was so overwhelming that I could hardly breathe. The next day, Miles apologized to me at school, but I was in no mood to pay attention to him. That day, just as I was getting ready to go to class, my mother suddenly stopped me. She said that the media wanted to interview our deaf-mute fisherman family and hoped to gain some public support, but they didn't tell me in advance. I was sweating and thinking about going to class. I tried to refuse and told them that today was important, but my mother insisted that I stay to do the translation. We quarreled. She felt that I didn't understand my family, and I felt that they didn't understand my dream at all. But in the end, I compromised. Looking at the parents in front of the interview camera, I know how hard they work, and I also know their stubbornness and helplessness. Looking at the disappointed back of the teacher, my heart was blocked and painful. I wanted to explain, but I couldn't say it. The teacher finally softened his heart. He knew that I was not working hard, but was dragged down by life. That night, I went home and plucked up the courage to tell them that I really wanted to go to Berkeley. I don't want to be a free translation machine for my whole life. I want to sing and have my own life. The teacher is helping me prepare for the interview, but they said that the family's newly started business can't do without me. It's as if the whole family will collapse if I leave.
I can't stay with you for the rest of my life.
I was very aggrieved and yelled at the night. Only in this way can I not hurt the person I love most. At that moment, the phone rang. It was a text message from Miles, apologizing, explaining. I didn't read it carefully, I just suddenly wanted to do something crazy. I took him to my most secret place, the cliff. I took off my clothes, took a deep breath, and jumped down. The freezing cold seawater wrapped me. In an instant, all my worries disappeared. The world was quiet. Miles also jumped down. At that moment, we were like two children escaping from reality, finally having a breathing space. But after returning home, reality hit us again mercilessly. Without my help, my father and brother had to continue working. Because they couldn't hear the call of the Coast Guard, they were fined $2,500. If they wanted to continue fishing, they had to have a person with normal hearing on the boat. But we were almost broke and couldn't afford to hire anyone. At dinner, the family ate in a depressed mood. Suddenly, my father made a decision. He wanted to sell the fishing boat. When I heard that, I froze. The fishing boat is our lifeblood. But I looked at their frustrated and helpless eyes, gritted my teeth, and said, I won't go to Berkeley. I smiled casually, but my heart was actually as painful as a knife. But my brother suddenly got angry. He walked away angrily, and I knew that he was not blaming me, but himself. The next day, I found my brother. He said with red eyes that he heard from my friends that I sang very well. He believed that I shouldn't stay in this small town, and shouldn't give up the whole world for my family. At that moment, my heart seemed to be wrapped in something warm. I knew I was not fighting alone. I knew that I deserved my own voice, my own future. Even though my family didn't understand my musical dream at the concert, my whole family sat in the first row to support me, and I was moved and nervous. They came, but they were deaf and dumb, and couldn't even hear the sound on the stage. The chorus began, and I tried my best to lead the whole audience to beat the rhythm. But I saw my father lowering his head from time to fiddle with the button that was crooked when he went out, and my mother whispered with him about what to eat for dinner. I laughed so hard, but there were thorns in my heart one after another. They couldn't keep up with the rhythm at all, and couldn't hear my singing. The finale was Miles and I singing a duet, a passionate love song. I looked at him and my voice was full of excitement. The lights from the audience shone on me, and I could feel every note trembling in my heart, but my parents' faces were full of confusion. When the singing ended, the audience burst into thunderous applause. There was still the silence in their world. When I got home, my father refused to go in. Leaning against the wall with a heavy expression, he looked at me, his eyes full of curiosity and reluctance. He wanted to know what I sang. Dad put his hand on my Adam's apple, closed his eyes, and felt the vibration of the sound in his palm. I sang harder and harder, and my heart was full of courage. I wanted him to truly hear my world. Dad's eyes began to turn red, and he was choking and unable to speak. At that moment, I knew that he finally heard my voice. The next morning, Dad pushed open my door and said, "Ruby, get up. Today is the day of the Berkeley interview, and the whole family will accompany you." My heart skipped a beat, and I was so happy that even my breathing was trembling. At the interview site, we were stopped outside. When it was my turn, I realized that I was dressed casually. I forgot the music score at home, and the pianist who accompanied me didn't know how to play the song I chose. I could only bite the bullet and sing a cappella. My music teacher quietly walked in.
I can accompany her.
He said that he was also a graduate of my alma mater and asked to accompany me. The piano sounded, and my voice slowly regained its strength. But I knew that this alone was not enough. Suddenly, I saw my parents sticking their heads out of the back door. At that moment, I was no longer just singing for myself. I wanted to use sign language to convey my love to them.
Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels.
As I sang, I gestured the lyrics in sign language so that they could feel my heartbeat in silence. After the interview, we went home to wait for the results. My family also hired a sailor to replace me on the ship. Even Miles started to learn sign language, fearing that he would miss any of my words. My parents also tried to integrate into the world of ordinary people. On the day of checking the results, the whole family sat in front of the screen, and I was so nervous that my palms were sweating. When the screen showed that I was admitted, my eyes were blurred by tears, and I threw myself into my parents' arms, and they also cried together. On the day of departure, the car drove away from home little by little. I looked at them in the rearview mirror, and my heart was full of mixed feelings. Suddenly, I asked the driver to stop the car, ran back to them, and hugged them tightly. This was the first time I really wanted to leave this home, to leave their support all the time. At that moment, I knew love is not a fetter, but the confidence to fly freely. Home is not a restraint, but a direction you can turn back at any time. The meaning of leaving is not separation, but growth. And the courage to grow often comes from the quietest but most firm hug.